Hello, welcome to the Peaceful Woodturner. This piece is a piece of oak that I've had for a while. I got it from outside of a firehouse. It's part of other pieces that I've used for other projects. It's really kind of wrong for the setup that I've had, which has been to just do turning between centers, and I want to get more of this than I would be able to do if I was just doing turning between centers. And it's also kind of short, but I just got a chuck. I'm really excited about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut off some of this excess up here so that I can get this closer to straight, and I'm going to square off this end. I'm going to start by turning it between centers just to get it down to a better round, and especially to get a good spot for my chuck to be able to grab. And then I'll get it mounted up in the chuck and we'll do a little bit of turning. I took off a bit, got this trued up a bit. It's really pretty wood. I'm going to try to get as close to center as I can using my handy dandy center finder. Kind of like this little tool. I've seen these used in a bunch of videos. I really like them. It's very simple to use. Alright. And the old whacking stick. And we are good. I've got the piece mounted. As you can see, it's still very far from round. So I'm going to start by just taking off some of this end down here, trying to straighten this out a little bit, and I'll work on getting all the bark off and everything else. One thing to remember if you do end up doing like any of this kind of stuff, and like I say in the beginning of my videos, I'm not a teacher, but I am going to share a little bit of experience with you. If you're working with anything like this, make sure that it's secure. Make sure you're wearing all the right protection. All these pieces of bark, they're going to fly off really unevenly on me. The other thing is that all these little parts that stick out are really where the hazards are for me anyway. I have to be very careful with it, not get too aggressive. I usually end up starting at the high side and working my way down. I find that that's the best way for me to do it. I've seen people do a few different things when they're working on these things, but that really is what works best for me. So I'm going to get started on a higher speed. I've also found that if I go a little bit higher, I have fewer catches and fewer problems with it. So I'm not going to go at my lowest speed, which is what I've done in the past, which is about 500 RPM. I'm going to go at a bit higher, about 900 RPM, just to start off with and straighten it out. That is a pretty piece of wood. If that had been outside any longer, it would have turned to rot, but as it is, it's just nicely spalted. It's actually pretty hard. So I cut out a little bit there. What I have done now is I just measured off. I need 3/16 to go into my chuck, and I want to make sure that's as true as possible. Obviously there's a little bit of wave here, so I want to get that as true as possible. I'm going to use my parting tool for that, and then I'm going to have to just straighten this out a little bit at this end. But I made sure that my 3/16 is at my smallest section so that I know I'll be good. So I'm just going to use my parting tool and just take this down a bit. Good. Now I have a nice straight true section right there that I can put into my chuck. So I'm going to reset everything and bring you back. Alright, I'm excited. I've got this piece in the chuck. It's my very first time turning anything on a chuck. I'm going to start with just hitting it again with the roughing gouge just to make sure I take it right back to purely true and centered. When I put the tailstock in, I could see that it wasn't quite hitting in the same spot, so it's not quite true to how it was. I think that's just partly how it's sitting in the chuck and everything. So I'm just going to run it through one more time with the roughing gouge, and then I'll start planing it off with the skew. Nice. I'm trying to think about what I'm going to make with this. I've been thinking about a few different things, all the various things that I'd like to have a chuck for, but I think what I'm going to do with this to start off is just see if I can make a top. And the reason for that is partly because I'm going to take this end down to a lot smaller than the rest of this needs to be, so that'll make a really nice piece for the handle, and then I can just shape out the top right here and part it off. So hopefully I'll come out pretty nice on that. I'm going to start by just taking this down a bit more. I'm going to switch over to my spindle gouge. Still a little rough right there, and I'm going to have to watch that spot right there. I'm going to take that down a little more. A little reset there. Because this is a little softer here than it is here, it's really not quite cutting the same way. So I'm getting a little bit of chatter and a little bit of a rough spot. I'm going to see if I can take that down a little bit smoother. Alright, that looks like that'll be pretty good size for a handle for a top. Might be a little small. And then I can shape it out down here. So let me see what I can do with this. Alright, I've got my little skew, and I'm just going to start shaping this down a little bit. Nice, simple. I'm going to take it down a little more here. Oh, pardon me about that. I'll take it down a little bit more here, and then I'll start shaping out the bottom of the top. The bottom of the top. Yeah, that thing. So I've got a wormhole right there. I think I'm going to try to take this down a little bit more just to get past that wormhole. Okay, it's shaping down nicely. I'm still getting the hang of this thing. I'm going to put a little bit more edge on it and get right back in. It's about ready to part off. Before I do that though, I'm going to sand it a bit. This has been coming along pretty nicely, so I'm just going to use a 120 grit sponge and then go to a 320 grit sponge. I've got my speed set as low as I can go, about 500 RPM. That feels really smooth. I love the different colors, it's just kind of fun. I'm going to burnish it a little bit with the shavings. That's really nice. I didn't take off the very top, it still can take the live center. So I'm going to put the live center back just to help stabilize it as I start to part it off. But before I do that, I'm going to put a little bit of polish on it. Okay, so I've applied a polish a few different ways, using all sorts of different materials. This time I'm going to try using paper towel. A lot of people recommend it. My problem with paper towels, they tend to lint up a lot. But I'll give it a try. Just trying to work this in a little bit. This is a mixture of beeswax and boiled linseed oil. And it didn't really want to come out on the paper towel, so I pulled out a piece, I worked it with my fingers a little bit to soften it up, and let's give it a try. Well, that took pretty nicely. I think I've still got a little too much of it on there. I'm going to buff it off with a completely fresh one, just so that I can keep it from collecting too much dirt and also keep it from turning too silky. It kind of gets a really soft finish if I'm not careful. That seems to be polishing up really nicely. You can see how much it took off. Alright, I like that. It feels good. It doesn't feel like it's got a lot of wax and finish on it. It seems to have set pretty well. So I'm just going to take this down a little bit more. I'm just going to keep using the skew to take it down because I want to try to get it down to a sharp point, or as sharp as I can. So I'm going to reset here and get it going. So my live center was making contact, but it was causing everything to shift a little bit. I wasn't liking that. So I have this sacrificial little piece in here. And this is just going on the live center and just putting a little bit of padding here so that everything will stay true. And what I'm going to do now is just work on taking this down. I'm going to come on this side, that side, this side, that side, try to get it down to a relatively sharp point. Nice. Now I just have to take it off and sand it. It's almost sharp as it is, but I need to just trim it up a little bit. Little sanding, and that should be nice. Okay, very little bit of sanding and a little bit of polishing. It really didn't take much sanding at all. It's got a nice point to it. It's more luck than skill on my part, but I'm really happy. I love the colors. It looks almost like a globe or a planet, you know? All the different continents floating around and the ocean and all the other things going on. Got it buffed up a little bit. Let's see how she spins. first top. Thank you for joining me on the Peaceful Woodturner. I'll see you next time.